Hello and welcome to Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle for another weekend. A very special episode of Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle, and we'll reveal all later in the show, Damo, but plenty of NBL basketball to talk about. We're locked into WA now. We're not getting in or out, which is unfortunate, so we can talk about that as well, but plenty of action on the court to talk about. We're going to have a look at our 40th anniversary Perth Wildcats teams as well, and see if you're part of it as well, Damo, which will be interesting. So plenty to get through. Let's get straight into it. I'm Chris Pike, but Damian Martin, the six-time NBL champion, the six-time Defensive Player of the Year, there has been. Did you survive your booster shot last week?
I survived. Here I am. In and out. It was actually very quick. I might have been waiting for about 2 minutes, called in, needle in, waiting room for 15 minutes, played on my phone for a little bit and then got out of there. So touch wood, all good. Thought I was doing the right thing and boom, borders closed.
Didn't matter, did it?
Didn't matter.
Didn't matter. We'll get to that shortly. First of all, we're sitting here recording and it's about a 32-degree day in Perth, and this is a cool change.
I think we've set all the records for the most days over 40 for January ever. And I think at one stage we had 5 consecutive days over 40. So it has been disgusting between the hours of about 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Have you still got keys to your neighbour's pool?
Yeah, he actually came out and said, "Oh, you're not using it enough." And I was like, "That's all I needed to hear." So we had a few days off and he thought something had happened, but we will be in there in about 2 hours' time when I clock off work. But no, I am very lucky to have a great neighbour with a pool that they don't use, and happy for my daughters and I to jump in there.
No, fantastic. Now, plenty of basketball to talk about as well, Damo. Plenty happened across the weekend, and we've pretty much got a game every day now. So there's plenty happening every.
You're busy. You're going to be very busy.
I'm busy, and things change a lot. 3 days ago, if we recorded this, we would have been talking about how horrible the Sydney Kings were looking. All of a sudden, they're looking fantastic. Up and down for a lot of teams. Not so much for Melbourne United, not so much even for the Perth Wildcats. I think you can write off that game in Adelaide. They bounced back very nicely. But later in the show, we're going to catch up with the scoring machine, and we're going to pick our 40th anniversary teams for the Perth Wildcats. We'll reveal all later, but do you have yourself in it?
No, I don't. No, I have not selected myself. It was actually really cool going through all the names and to even be nominated is obviously very nice. And obviously they've got a selection panel of 6. They'll announce their team before. Well, it would have been nice if they'd been able to announce it with a home game in Perth, possibly celebrating Jesse's 400th, that milestone's coming up. Instead, they'll reveal it at some stage and then we'll watch the Wildcats on TV. But yeah, some great players have donned the Wildcats jersey and you'll hear 10 of them announced in a couple of weeks' time.
How many of our team here on Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle make the cut? So we've got yourself, we've got Matty Knight as part of the team, we've got Shawn Redhage part of the team. How many make it?
I've got them both in there. I'm not sure how much you want me to reveal now.
Well, we can reveal that much.
Yeah, so Matty and Jesse, Matty
and Shawn. Maybe Jesse too. We'll wait to see.
Have made my team, and obviously they're a part of the program, part of the show, and yeah, getting to play alongside both of them. Matty Knight, one of the most underrated defenders in the league. I kind of rate him and Mika Vakona as the best power forwards of the 10 years. They're kind of in and out of the league together. And then, Shawn Redhage, I believe he'll have his jersey retired and hanging from the banners at some stage, whether it's this year or next, with no home games pending. I can't see it happening this year. But, Shawn Redhage, all-time great. I think it's a no-brainer that he will be in the 40-year anniversary team.
Well, before we talk about what we saw on court, what was your reaction last Thursday night when you suddenly found out that the WA borders would no longer be opening? And that means for every chance now that both for the Wildcats and the Lynx that I think there's a genuine chance they don't get back home now to play any more home games this season. Yeah,
initially I thought of my mum, to be honest. She was quite emotional when she got to call me. They'd booked flights heading over here February 16th. Would have been the first time they've been in Perth 2 years. I actually put up a post 1 year, but it was actually 2 years ago. They barely know their grandkids, barely know my daughters, and that breaks my heart. And I called mum the next morning, and she was asleep by the time the announcement was made, obviously being 3 hours ahead in country New South Wales. And I spoke to her, she picked up and started crying. And she goes, "I've been like this since 1 a.m, since she woke up and saw the news. I don't know why she woke up at 1 a.m, but that's when the tears started, and they've booked again now for April. Who knows whether they'll have to cancel that one. Dad's got cancer for the second time. He's the person I idolise the most. Haven't seen him. So, I was gutted. And then I actually messaged Jesse Wagstaff's wife to see how she was feeling. Called Jesse, got to speak with him. Messaged Mitch Norton's fiancée, Sasha, see how she was feeling. Messaged Bryce, messaged a few of the boys, just because these guys have wife, kids, families. And what they thought was going to be a 6 or 8 week trip is now much, much longer. And similar to New Zealand Breakers, it can't be easy.
Scott Morrison's in a fascinating position too. He's moved his whole family over here from the United States. They don't know anyone in this whole country, so they've come to Perth because of their dad and their husband. All of a sudden, they can't see you, and they're stuck. They're in Perth right now, away from him, and they don't know anyone in the whole state or the country.
And the loneliness, they must feel, that distance must feel even longer than what it usually is between us and the US. So, yeah, it's a tough time. And million reasons, millions pros, million cons. But at the end of the day, they're the first three things I did was reach out to some teammates, thought of my family, and then digested where to next.
Yeah, of course, everyone can make a case if it's the right or wrong thing, but it's the personal impact it has on people. And I know that I grew up in Geelong. My grandparents are still there. I haven't seen them for a number of years. I was hoping to get back there because when you're talking about grandparents, you don't know when something might happen. The last time I spoke to them was a couple of months ago on the phone, and I called them, and it broke my heart because I felt like my nana, she's struggling a little bit. Her memory comes and goes, and I kind of found myself having the same conversation with her probably 5 times because she couldn't remember what we had talked about. So I kind of feel like time's running out for me to get back there and see them, and I'm glad I can tell them that they're my 2 favourite people in the whole world on the phone, but nothing's the same as doing it in person. And from a personal point of view, I just hope that I can get there before I guess it's too late.
Yeah, time and family are the most valuable things in the world, and both have been taken away.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But we better talk some basketball, Damo, and this is a special show for a lot of reasons, and let's make the most of it,
Enjoy
Damo.
it. Let's do it.
So let's start with the Sydney Kings. We talked last week about that loss from an unlosable position against the Breakers that they coughed up. Then they put themselves in an unlosable position on Friday night against the Brisbane Bullets, where they were 19 points up in the first quarter. They dominated the entire game until the start of the fourth quarter, and I think it was a 20-5 run that Brisbane went on, and the Bullets dominated from there. But then I think it shows a lot of character because Chase Buford was under a lot of pressure. The whole team was under a lot of pressure. They went back home playing against the same team 2 days later, and they dominated on Sunday against the Bullets, won by 24. I think they led by as much as 34 at some point during the game. First of all, how horrible would have they been feeling Friday night? And how do you turn that sort of thing around?
That's the beauty of a double header, is the frustration and anger they would have felt in the locker room after blowing that opportunity. They only had to wait less than 48 hours to redeem themselves. But in saying that, if you play your best basketball and you lose, you can start pulling out hair going, what more can we do? When they played their best basketball for that first quarter in particular, they're a team that can build a double-digit lead against a Brisbane side that's got full of stars. So
you still think their big three is the best big three combination in the league?
Yeah, I think they're just absolute studs for Brisbane. So Sydney, yes, it would have been frustrating sitting in that locker room knowing they blew it. Credit to Brisbane for hanging in there, making some big plays. 20 of the first 25 points to score and to start the fourth quarter. That's big time. But Sydney would have watched it over and over again and said, okay, this is who we are. This is what we're capable of. Let's focus on that. But when we start taking shortcuts or we stopped executing or we weren't picking up full court, all the little things that probably started to slip away when they built a 19-point lead, the league's too good to take away from us being at our best and expecting to win. And they learn a very, very valuable lesson. But luckily, great teams implement those lessons and learn from their mistakes, which they did. And they defeated them, 97-73, huge win. But the standout for me, DJ Vasiljevic, huge weekend for him. Yeah. Even in that loss, he had 21 points. Then he backs it up with a 23-point performance. Yeah. It's just great to see him back out there doing what he loves. And we spoke about this on the show. I feel like they were utilising him in much better spots, much better system.
Exactly how you said. Go to Jarrell Martin in the block, and then your second option's DJ. That's what they did.
I'd like to think they listened in, but I think it's purely by coincidence. Look, it's just great to see them. That's in and out game, like we spoke about, inside outside. But yeah, he was brilliant. That's a big standout. Split the weekend, but more importantly, you've got potentially now someone who can go on to be first or second leading scorer week in, week out, while they're dealing with their import issue.
Xavier Cooks. Firstly, have you seen too many softer ejections than what he copped on Friday night? His first unsportsmanlike was because he tugged the shorts of his opponent. The second was a comment he made to the ref that the mics didn't pick up, so we have no idea what he said. He gets ejected 3 minutes into the second quarter. No coincidence that when they needed someone to make a stand in the fourth quarter, they didn't have him to be out there for them.
And it surprises me. I don't really know him personally, just a little bit of, obviously know his dad, got to see him as a kid growing up, to be honest, but just seems like a really nice person, like a great guy, a hell of a basketball player. Yeah. So I did not expect him to be a type of player. We nominated him for the Galen, a week ago.
He's probably in the running this week still.
Yeah, the ejection hurt. The ejection definitely hurt. But, they need him out there on the court. In that win, they did finally have 13, 11, 4 and 2. He just, does a little bit of everything, and that's what a perfect glue guy does. And I think he was out there to prove a point that, hey, apologies about the other game. I'll help you out.
Absolutely. Now, Melbourne United, how far ahead of the pack do you think they are right now? Another dominant win. It's a funny one. They beat Adelaide on Saturday, 97-78, but I felt like Adelaide didn't actually play that badly. I think Melbourne is just that good right now.
Yeah, and they showed it at the back end of last year. They just were too deep. It didn't matter who they were subbing in or out. You weren't losing anything, and that's the style they're playing right now. They are a very, very, very good team, and you just look at the point spread. You got 5 or 6 guys that had double figures, but when your top scorer is 18, yet your team's put on 97, you love that as a coach, and you dread that as an opposing coach because when it comes to the scout, you got to play straight up. You can't double off anyone right now, and the few times you've either got Illy, maybe they left at times, but he's either knocking down threes or he's going off the dribble for another kick out. Delhi's creative, he's smart, he's backed it up with another good performance, even though he didn't have to go for 30 plus. They're just a very, very good team. Jack White, love how he plays. He looks to be back to full athleticism.
Sure. Even Newell's represented the Martin family nicely.
Yeah, my wife's cousin, Brad Newell. 10 points. Great to see him out there. He actually looks in good nick as well. So I think he's taking care of his body, which is great. Yeah, too good, to be honest. At the end of the day, Adelaide, like you said, weren't poor. It's just that Melbourne were too good.
Perth Wildcats bounced back nicely from that loss in Adelaide last Tuesday. Really good performance against the Illawarra Hawks. And I think, fascinated to get your thoughts. Who's the big three? We know Bryce and Vic. Is it Michael Fraser or Todd Blanchfield, the third prong in that threesome? Or is it a big four? Because Michael Fraser might not be putting a lot of points on the board, but he's doing everything else very, very impressively right now.
He's getting better, and I think he's getting to understand the refereeing with his defense. I spoke with Danny Mills, who obviously was a big part of recruiting him, and he said, no, he's a two-way player. Yep. He's strong. He likes to be physical. His first game, I think he had 4 fouls in space of about 5 minutes. So he is physical, but he's learning what he can get away with now. So I think he'll eventually be their best two-way player. And when you've got guys like Nordo can pick up full court, you switch them over, and there's Fraser guarding the bigger wing player. It's going to help them get stops, get out and run and have some fun, and we saw that with him in that win. So the big three, Todd Blanchfield is deserving of it, of the season he had and what he's doing already. But don't sleep on Fraser. He will drop a few 20-point games, but it's that two-way that he's going to impress.
It's got to be one of your daughters, doesn't it, Damo?
Is that one of your daughters? We are in the office, and my girls have come into work today with me, and they're knocking out there. They're playing a bit of dress-up, and they've got some flowers in their hair I can see through the window.
I love Scott Morrison's response after the game when he was asked about Michael Fraser, and I think the question was framed along the lines of, should have you gone for a big instead of him? And he said, because he gives us everything and he's giving us defense, he's rebounding, he's a great rebounder for his size, there's not another player that I would rather in his position, and I love that his coach is backing him in.
Yeah, and rightly so. I mean, they're not doing too much wrong. Yeah, they dropped it to Adelaide. Poor start. Adelaide were fantastic. But they showed what they're capable of doing against a team who I rate as, up there with Melbourne as being the best in Illawarra Hawks. But you're exactly right. Who are you going to bench to bring in a new import? You're not getting rid of Fraser to then bench Hodgson or Majuk. You need your role players as well. So the scoring power is there. The balance, I believe, they've got right now. And it just means guys we're not even mentioning yet, Jesse Wagstaff, Mitch Norton, they can just go out there, play their role and do it very well. Majuk's having another great season. He's been an absolute beast out there after missing 12 months with injury. So he's kind of their unsung hero while the studs are doing their thing.
Yeah, plus the energy of Luke Travers was important.
Travers doing out there too. Big rebounds again, blocks. He just a little bit of everything, which means you can focus on your role because you've got 4 great scorers.
Now, as we record this, unfortunately, we still haven't seen the Breakers or the Taipans back in action. They were meant to play each other on Sunday. That game didn't go ahead because I think it was some of the Breakers players this time that have gone down with COVID because I tried to catch up with Jeremiah Martin last week. We had it scheduled to do a bit of a feature on him, but he was locked away with COVID. So that'll have to go on hold, and I think some of his teammates have followed suit. So we won't be seeing the Breakers for a little while. Hopefully by the time we release this show, we might have seen the Taipans play. So they're scheduled to play on Tuesday, but how tough is it for, especially probably the Taipans who still haven't played since New Year's Eve, and they prepare for all these games, and then they sort of either a day or the morning of the game, they find out they're not playing.
Yeah, you do get, it's like preseason. The worst thing about preseason is you're only playing against each other, and you're so excited to take everything you've built on the court against someone, and so they just be feeling like Groundhog Day. And I'm not sure who they'll play or when they'll play. Hopefully it goes ahead soon, but they'll be chomping at the bit, and hopefully they respond like Adelaide did. Adelaide had 31 days or whatever it was between games, came out and were brilliant against the Perth Wildcats. Hope to see that with Cairns, but it also has bought them time with Scotty Machado. And that's a big thing.
They've missed a lot fewer games without him than they would have thought. And we had a great chat with Laos last week about previewing the Taipans being back in action. We're still waiting.
Thanks for that, Lousy. We might use it for when they do finally play.
So that's pretty much the things I wanted to touch on. So, I mean, Melbourne United for me still the standouts. They're 7-2, Wildcats 6-2. The Phoenix, we feel like they're struggling a little bit at times, but they're still 4-2. Their record's very good. I'll get your thoughts on the Hawks in a second as well. They're 4-3. Taipans are still 2-2. The Bullets 4-4. 36 is 3-4. The Kings 4-6. Jack Jumpers 2-6, the Breakers 2-7. So the Hawks, we would have seen them play again after we record this and release the show. So we might learn a lot more about them right now than we know right now. But they've lost 3 of their last 4 games now, including their last 2 to Melbourne and Perth. But interestingly, they were the best team in the league defensively last year. Right now, they're the worst statistically, but also, if you ask Brian Goorjian, he feels like they're the worst defensively right now as well. They deliberately tried to get better offensively this season. Have they given up too much defensively?
Obviously, Gorge was away a lot in the off-season, and anyone knows Gorge, it's defence first. So with him back, the longer he has with these guys, the better they're going to get. But they've also been hampered by COVID as well. So they've had guys in isolation, locked up in hotels. And it's one thing to talk about defensive strategies. It's another thing to go out there and it becomes second nature through hours and hours of implementing it on the training court. They haven't had that. So Gorge is an incredible coach. They've got a fantastic roster. You don't just lose it overnight. They might have taken a backward step with their delivery right now of the defensive game plan. But if there's one thing I know about Gorge is he gets through to his players, and his players will respond by working hard on the training court. He usually has one of the fittest teams in the league. They will get to that fitness level, and you'll see that with full court defense, doubling off the post at times, so on and so forth. So right now, Gorge said it's a must-win game. It's do or die for them already. He's claiming, and I think they will respond. So I'm not too worried about it, because when you have a coach that just loves offense, you don't expect him to change much at the other end. But Gorge is a defense-first coach. He will make sure they're playing it.
I felt for Harry Froling. So I spoke to him last week, did a story for the NBL website about him. And in that, while I was talking to him, he talked about how in the past he's always believed the hype. And when people have been pumping up his tyres, he's always let it go to his head. And he's kind of struggled to back it up on the back of that. So I did that story, and he had a bit of hype about him after a couple of good games. He comes out on Sunday and plays 5 minutes and puts up a donut, and I felt horribly guilty.
It's the Pikey factor.
I think so.
It's like when any commentator says you at the free throw, he's an 85% free throw shooter. Sure thing, boom, miss. No, do not write any articles about any of my friends that are in the league, please. I want to see them put up big numbers.
Okay, let's keep moving, Damo. How are we going on the Damo Award? Are we still way behind?
We're still way behind. I've got a few weeks to catch up on. I can tell you a few names that will be up there, and that's Dellavedova's snuck out some points. The block... Do you know, I'm throwing you on the spot here, what's the most anyone's averaged for block shots in a game?
Averaged?
I'm guessing it'd be Simon Dwight. I don't know for sure. I'd be guessing Simon Dwight would have to be up there.
I'd be surprised if it's got over 5 per game.
Yeah, so I would love to know that, because, what we're seeing out of Southeast with, 18 and 8, it doesn't have any blocks. But
Joe Tree definitely had some blocks again. I tell you what, Joe Luala-Chul's not far behind either.
Exactly, and we spoke about him last week. Those who weren't aware of what he did in college, what they saw for Melbourne United, okay, he's just a straight scorer, doesn't like playing the other end. Nope. Flip that. In college, he was a defensive machine. I think he was all-conference defensive player of the year. And what we're seeing this year is more like, I think, the player that they expected with Melbourne United. He's been brilliant for them. Absolutely fantastic. He's still scoring, but yeah, he's getting so many block shots, defensive rebounds, and you'd just be loving that if you're one of the coaches for Melbourne, because I know Vickerman would drag him quite quickly last year, but he had the luxury of a now NBA centre
of Landale.
But now it's like all in with him, play both ends, and you can play big minutes, and he's responded by doing that. So yeah, you'll see a few bigs in there as well to back up Dellavedova with some points, but I do owe you a couple of 3-2-1s in the Defensive Player of the Year award. The
problem when we talk up Joe's defence is that the scoring machine picked him as his best defensive player at the start of the year. We don't need to pump up Shawn too much.
I cannot believe he picked him. It's amazing. It hurts me to potentially back something Shawn's predicted. We
will hear from Shawn shortly. I can't wait to see who. I'm sure he's got himself starting in the Perth Wildcats all-time team, but
Captain
I can't wait to pick his brain about. Can't wait to find out if he's got you as his starting point guard or if he's stuck with Ricky Grace either. So I'm interested to pick Shawn's brain. We'll get to him shortly after we announce the winner of the Galen Award as the best team man for round 8. We're going to miss a couple of games because we're recording this before round 8 actually finishes. Now, Xavier Cooks, as you said before, maybe his ejection makes it tough for him. Jack White put a good case forward. I put forward Michael Frazier's case earlier.
Yep.
Mitch Norton ran the team very nicely also. Tremendous defence on Tyler Harvey, so I put his name forward. And Ryan Broekhoff didn't score a lot, but he did a lot of other good things for the Phoenix against the Jack Jumpers on Sunday. Anyone jump out at you from that list or somebody not on the list?
No, I'm happy to go with a nominee from your list. I loved playing with Ryan Broekhoff with the Australian Boomers. Before you knew it, the game was finished and he's played 35 minutes and it's like, oh, wow. But why sub him out? He rarely does anything wrong.
Sure.
He spaces the floor, he rebounds well, defends hard. And you're seeing that from him. Like you said, he didn't put up big points, but I mean, like we said, they're at 4-2. And for some reason, we feel like we're treating them as if they're 7th or 8th on the ladder.
Yeah.
They're having a very good season so far, and Broekhoff's a big part of that. But I'm going to give it to my guy, Nordo. He won my defensive player of the year award last year. Will definitely get a nomination off the back of this weekend. A few points going his way, but yeah, Nordo just does everything, a little bit of everything, and always puts the team first, and that's a big part of why we named it the Galen.
That is what the Galen Award's all about, absolutely.
And we saw that, and especially after a loss. I know it was different rounds, but that was a shortish turnaround. And leaders stood up, and I believe Nordo would have been a bit of a voice in the locker room and a big reason why they turned it around and picking up, turning, playing against one of the best offensive players in the league. I thought he was fantastic.
Thanks for that, Damo. When we come back, we're going to go through our Perth Wildcats all-time 40th anniversary team.
Here we go.
We'll hear from the scoring machine as well, and then we'll be back to wrap up the show. And don't forget, we've got some big news, so stay tuned for the end of the show for that. Okay, back on Hoop 7's basketball hustle. Before we get to the scoring machine, Shawn Redhage, to go into this in more detail, Damo, I want to talk to you about your 40th anniversary Perth Wildcats team. Well, you've been in Perth now for 13 years, so you've got a fair understanding of what's happened the last decade plus, but I'm sure the history of the club has been drilled into you during that time as well. So you're fully aware of the calibre of players that came before you as well. Now, let's get it out of the way first of all. Are you sure you don't put yourself in the 10 players that you'll select?
We haven't spoken to Shawn yet, so it could be interesting. I think you might be. I don't think anyone's going to put themselves in their own team. So I'm selecting a team. I can't put myself in there. I'd feel silly doing it.
I do have someone that would. So I did something similar with on Sixers Fix with the Adelaide 36ers with Scotty Ninnis and Brett Maher a couple of years ago. Brett Maher had no hesitation in being the starting two men on his team.
I love that. Brett would not shake your hand with his right hand, his shooting hand. He used to always shake your hand with his left, so he couldn't touch the moneymaker. Classic. Well, and when the court's named after you, you've probably a good chance of making your anniversary team. Yes, the Wildcats team, I've gone with JC. James Crawford, the Alabama Slam, a no-brainer. So there's a few no-brainers as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I don't think anyone can argue with that one.
James Crawford, no-brainer. Ricky Grace, no-brainer. Bryce Cotton, no-brainer.
Can I put an interesting one to you before I get your last two in your starting five? Do we take character into calculation? And there's one person on the list. Does things that have happened off the court rule him out of the team, or does he still make the team?
On Tiny Pinder, who you're alluding to, One, to be honest, I have not seen nearly enough of him play.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm not going to talk about what he got caught up in off the court and subsequently, what's happened. But I think it's one of those things, because we don't really talk much about him because of the off-court things. I don't see much footage of him on it. So you may be aware of his talents on the court. I didn't even think of him, to be honest, when it came down to it, because when I think of the all-time greats from that era, it is the Vlahovs, the Graces, the Fishers, the Crawfords, and I'm well aware that Pinder was a hell of a player, super freak athletic. Obviously Kanu's playing in the NBL now, incredible athlete, great player, good kid. But yeah, he didn't make my team regardless.
I like redemption stories, so I feel like if people do the wrong thing, if they learn from it, they become better people, then they deserve a second chance in life. I don't know if that's happened with Tiny.
Yeah.
It was only last year where he was back in trouble again with similar incidents than originally he was in trouble for. So for me, I think you can't rule him in because of that. As good, don't think it matters. I think if it was Ricky Grace, as good as he was, if he had similar off-court issues, I would really reconsider including him. So for mine, as good as Tiny was, I would cross him off my list.
Yep.
And if you're not even considering on your list, then even if Shawn includes him in his starting five, I think he gets ruled out anyway.
Okay. So no, he didn't make my team. The scoring machine. Okay, I better put this in order of a starting five. So I do have Bryce Cotton, Ricky Grace. That's my backcourt. I'd be very surprised if that's not the starting 1-2 when the official team is announced. The third spot, really does, in my opinion, come down to Fisher and Redhage for the starting. I'm biased. I got to play alongside Shawn. I knew Scott Moores when he was coaching, but from all accounts was a hell of a player, and the highlights I've seen, you would have loved calling him in teammate. Just a beast out there. So I've gone with Shawnee, giving him the nod over Fish, and then Vlahov and JC. JC, like I said, the Alabama Slammer, close out my starting five. We mentioned him at the top of the show. Matty Knight I do have in there.
Now, just on your starting five, we haven't discussed this beforehand. You've actually named the exact same starting five that I had.
Ah, there we go.
So I went for Shawn over Scott Fisher because of the longevity, really. Because Scott had a great career, but he also did a lot of great things elsewhere. Shawn did all of his great work in Perth and did it for 380 games. So I think Shawn gets the nod for me. I don't think you can take out Vlahov and JC as your front court, and I don't think you can take out Bryson and Ricky as your back court. So amazingly, we've got the same starting five, and it doesn't really matter what Shawn comes back with because we can overrule him.
I would love to watch that team. Could you imagine Vlahov setting screens for those boys? The lob game they'd have with Alabama Slammer, and unfortunately there's only one basketball. So
would Shawn even flop off a Vlahov screen as his teammate?
No, it wouldn't be a flop if it's a Vlahov screen. He's collecting you. He's dropping you to ground. So that was my starting five.
Okay.
Now, it's funny you say the longevity, because a guy that I thought was an incredible player and he made the Adelaide 36ers anniversary team was Martin Catalini. But I do think Cat played his best basketball in a different jersey.
Potentially even in Cairns.
Exactly right.
It's funny that he's in that Adelaide team, but he might have even been better in Cairns.
And he would be in the all-anniversary team for Cairns as well. If they were not. He was brilliant in the North. So, yeah, Cat didn't make my team because I thought he played his best basketball elsewhere, but I loved calling him a teammate for
and a championship teammate.
And a championship teammate alongside Paul Rogers. Rogie I did select, though. I know Rogie played elsewhere, but just...
No, again, his best basketball was in Perth, though.
And as far as I'm concerned, he's an all-time great. Brilliant big. Just a sensational back to the basket, old school big. Pick and roll, great leader, great person. So he made my team.
Were you disappointed you didn't get to play with him? You came here, I'm sure you were looking forward. One of the big reasons you signed when you signed here to come was having him as your big man, but he got injured so early in that season and he never came back.
The very little I got to... call him a teammate for. So he was still captain of our team, championship winning captain. But yeah, he was injured. He had a bursitis in his elbow. That tore Shawn as well. Bursitis in his elbow, and next he's torn everything and career over. And obviously he was coming to the end of his career with his ankle injuries and whatnot. But great teammate, but just so talented back to the basket. I remember when I played for West Sydney Razorbacks and we had to scout against Perth. Be like, all right, what are we going to do with Rogie? Let's go double. If it's not Matty guarding him, let's go double. Because Matty, even though he was playing the 5 spot, same position as Rogie's 7-footer. Matty's 6'8". So it was always...
That's with hair.
With hair, standing up. And the big fella, the Nightmare, I do have just absolutely brilliant player. So I've got him in my team coming off the court. And then when you've got your Benner up in there, retired, I've thrown Mike Ellis in there as well. And capping out my 10, another former teammate. I know he didn't play here very long. That's his biggest downfall. We only had 3 seasons in a Wildcats jersey. Did win an MVP. Did win a grand final MVP as well, Kevin Lish. Great player, great person.
4 seasons. 4 seasons.
Was it 4? No, 3. He never played for Trev, which hurts him. So, maybe, there could be some other guys who feel like they are more deserving than Kev with only 3 years. But I thought the 3 he gave were very, very impressive. And, big reason why that 10-year drought between championships came to an end with K Lish, capping it off with grand final MVP.
Yep, grand final MVP and an MVP in that stint. So, tough to argue. So you're 5 off the bench. It was just.
So I did ramble. Apologies.
So
Rogers and Knight.
Paul Rogers, Matt Knight, Kevin Lish, Mike Ellis,
and Fisher,
and Scott Fisher, of course. So I'm going to be slightly different because I have to fit in Damian Martin into my 10. So I've got you, Damo, and that was an easy one, to be honest. And if anyone can just read your resume, you'll understand why. I'm going to stick with Mike Ellis as well, championship captain, inaugural captain, just a legend of the club.
Still at every game. I love that he and Watto are at every single game.
Yep.
Eric Watterson dates Mike's sister, I want to say. Just beautiful family. Great to see both those guys in the stands.
And we'll be hearing a lot more about the Ellis name shortly as well.
Yes, big news.
And so who else have I got? I've got obviously Scott Fisher. Mm-hmm. My quandary was I only had one spot for Paul Rogers and Matty Knight.
Yeah, who'd you go with? Instead of drum roll.
So let me make sure I've got that right before I
can. So Fisher, I really appreciate you feeling like you had to mention me to do this together. Fisher, yours truly, Mike Ellis. Who am I missing? I got 2 spots left for you.
Oh, Lish, Kevin Lish.
You got K Lish. Yep.
Well, unless I give up Kev and have Roger and Knight.
He's going red.
It's a tough one. So I've got 2 spots and I've got three. We haven't even mentioned James Harvey, so he's unfortunate to not quite make the cut. Maybe it's again a longevity thing. I'm considering who's more likely.
I love that and I'll just talk while you're thinking because I can see you staring at these names hard. When Rogie won MVP of the league, I remember him getting up there and he said, "I'm not even the best player on my team," referring to Ricky Grace. But league MVP. Brilliant player, great captain. And then Matty Knight, he was runner-up MVP when he was with West Sydney, came over to Perth and was just brilliant in building that culture. And I think between us and New Zealand, I think 10 of 11 grand finals were won by both teams. Yes. And that was a big Matty Knight, Mika Vicona rivalry.
I tell you what, the fact that I've got Ricky and Bryce as my starting guards, and I've got you and Mike Ellis already on my bench as guards. Maybe I don't need an extra guard.
It's cutting Lish.
I am.
Spot. Sorry,
I am. I'm going Paul Rogers and Matty Knight. So my 5 off the bench: Damian Martin, Mike Ellis, Scott Fisher, Paul Rogers, Matty Knight, and I'm sorry, Kevin Lish, but if we had a team of 12, you would have made it.
Yeah, and if we had a team of 12, Jesse Wagstaff would have made mine.
Sure.
It's funny. I know these teams. They've said, build the best team. If I'm building the best team, Jesse Wagstaff, just winner, ultimate winner, great guy, and longevity, I do believe, should play a part of it. And I think he's been nothing but success since being out west.
Okay, Damo, we'll let ourselves off. Well, actually, one more question. How would your team compare to the Adelaide 36ers team that we came up with? So the starting 5 on that team: Darnell Mee, good luck scoring against him, Brett Maher, Martin Catalini, Daniel Johnson, Mark Davis. And off the bench, we had Al Green, Darryl Pearce, Kevin Brooks, Bill Jones, and Mike McKay. You didn't see a lot of those guys, so it's probably tough for you to answer. But how do those 2 teams stack up against each other?
Oh, wouldn't that be fun? Darnell Mee, my favourite defender of all time. I learned a lot playing against him in my rookie season. Brett Maher, all-time great. Cat, when like I said, played his best basketball over there. DJ, I'm going to have the Wildcats. They're going to pip them, but it would be fun. Look at that bench. Mean Al Green coming out there.
I remember we got a lot of feedback from Al Green for having him on the bench. He was not happy.
I could only imagine. I love Mean Al Green. He would be good fun. The rebounding machine, Mark Davis, chairman of the board. So, I'm backing the Wildcats to get it done, but whoever Darnell is guarding is not going to have a fun night. So,
well, Darnell Mee guarding Bryce Cotton. Unbelievable.
It would be fun to watch. So, the Wildcats will get it done there, but it'd be a fun game if we could have made that a reality.
All right, let's let ourselves off the hook, and when we come back, I'll be with the scoring machine, Shawn Redhage. Okay, I'm here with the scoring machine, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Firstly, Shawn, last year we celebrated your 40th birthday on the show. That means you're 41 now. How did your birthday go last week?
Oh, yeah, no, it was, I spent it on a basketball court coaching 3 different camps. So I had the campers sing me happy birthday. One of my coaches thought it would be good to let the whole camp know it was my birthday. So, being able to spend it on a basketball court, nowhere else I'd rather be. But it was also kind of wrapping up 2 weeks and 500 kids. So it was kind of a bit of a celebration at the end of those 2 weeks. A lot of basketball coaching and camps being run. So it was a nice 41st, and next year is my golden birthday, the 42nd one. So
it is.
Yeah, we'll have to do something special for that one, I reckon.
I wonder if we try to tie it in. I wonder if your jersey gets retired on the same day you turn 42 next year. That might all work nicely.
No, that would definitely be a memorable birthday, that's for sure.
How desperate are you to make sure no one ever wears number 42 for the Wildcats again? How would you feel if somebody trotted out in it?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. It's, definitely pretty proud to put on that jersey. And I'm sure someone able to wear it with the Wildcats, they'd hopefully play with as much pride as I thought I did when I put it on. So it's a special club to play for, and there's not many jerseys retired up there. So I think Damian Martin will get his at some stage, and it'll be a great evening when that happens. I think I don't think anyone got a bigger cheer when their number got called out than Damo when he got called out on the court. I'm noticing Bryce is kind of taking over that at the moment, and Vic Law keeps dropping 30. He might get the loudest roar when he gets called out.
Absolutely. So that segues nicely, Shawn. I want to continue our discussion on the Wildcats' 40-year anniversary team. It'll officially be announced shortly, but Damo and myself have gone through our teams, and interestingly, Damo didn't want to include himself. He didn't feel comfortable to include himself. I had Damo in my team, and I find it hard to imagine you won't have Damo in your team. But when it comes to the scoring machine in your team that you pick, do you figure yourself into it?
Oh, look, that's a hard one. I don't really I'd say leave myself out. I think it's kind of one of those things. You're selecting a team. You don't put your own self in the team. But there's a lot of good candidates out there, and 40 years for a club like the Wildcats. If you did make that team, that's a pretty special team to make, because just the history, and it's not just any club. You're talking about a team that's won so many championships and produced in the running every single year.
Absolutely. Like I told Damo, though, I did a similar thing with Scott Ninnis and Brett Maher. We picked our all-time Adelaide 36ers teams, and Brett Maher had no trouble including himself as the starting two-guard. So you're not quite like Marzi?
Well, look, I haven't signed the court at RSC Arena yet. So when I'm able to sign the autograph on RSC Arena, then I can include, Brett Maher. What an absolute legend. The amount of times he won games for Adelaide. He was a pretty special player. I remember when I came into the league, and everyone was telling me about him when our first game we played him, and I walked off the court and I said, yep, that respect is definitely due. He just had it commanded out there, anything he wanted to do. And I think one of the things that impressed me was, he was such a good defender as well. So all around, he was a pretty special player.
Yep, he was. But we're here to talk about the Wildcats players, Shawn. So I don't know where you want to start with your team. Do you want to start with your starting five, perhaps?
Oh, look, probably starting five. You're going to go probably pretty easy. You got Ricky Grace, Bryce Cotton, Scott Fisher, Blahoff, and Crawford. Those five pretty much kind of speak for themselves. I don't think anyone's going to really argue with that. Those guys, and you think about that team as well. You had four out of those five playing together at the same time. That would have been a tough team to go up against.
You got a history with quite a lot of them as well. Obviously, Blahoff was running the club when you first arrived in Perth. Scott Fisher went on to be your coach. You're a teammate of Bryce Cotton, and you've been around Ricky Grace quite a lot. I'm sure have you met JC as well?
Yeah, so JC came back. First time I met him, came back for, I think it was the Wildcat 30th anniversary. And
Might have been
30 or 35th,
35,
maybe 35. Yeah, you look,
because I
you
think
get
it was
to a
at
point.
RSC Arena, I'm pretty sure. When he came back.
RSC Arena, I think he was in his 50s and he was still dunking the basketball. So some of the clips I saw of James Crawford, I mean, it was just spectacular. I mean, be able to get a shot off over him would have been a feat in itself. So, and then obviously I came in at the end when Brace had just retired and Blahoff was the owner and Fish was the coach. So, definitely learned a lot of history from there. And, Fish even used to, when we were on the road, if we had an injury or something, he used to come into training with us at times, and he was still giving us buckets. So you could tell that he, even when he was in his 40s, so he was always super fit. And, I probably owe a lot to Blahoff and Fisher getting me over here, bringing me over for the trial, and then, Fish kind of give me that opportunity to play, and I guess kind of earn my time here in the NBL, and so I owe lots of those two guys, and they're pretty special. Great to see Grace and Blahoff and those guys still around and impacting here in Perth as well.
Absolutely is. Okay, so the only difference you've got from what Damo and myself selected with that starting five is that we both had you ahead of Scott Fisher, but I understand why you've gone differently, obviously. How about I read out some names to you, and in terms of our five off the bench, you say yes or no. Tiny Pinder.
Look, I'd say no. And I'll be honest, I never saw Pinder play growing up. And that's probably where it can be tough. And probably the people that have lived here and seen the generations of when the Wildcats started, but probably just more the off-court stuff is probably doesn't put them into the Wildcats because that's as part of the culture as well. I mean, I think
absolutely,
coming in and going out to hundreds of schools each year and just feeling like this is Perth's team.
I think
that's part of it. Yeah. It is, and I think that's something that when you put on that Wildcats jersey, that's something that's part of what it's about.
No disagreement. Paul Rogers, another one of your former teammates.
Look, I'm going to throw Paul Rogers in. Especially those years, MVP. I mean, if you win an NBL MVP, that is pretty special. And I mean, I was lucky to play with Paul when he came back from Europe, and his first year back was my first year. And a great leader, great player, great teammate. And one of the things he probably underrated about Paul was his passing. I just thought he was one of the best big man passers that I played with.
Yep, both Damo and myself had him in there too. Another one of your teammates, Matty Knight.
Look, I'll throw Matty Knight in at the 4.
Yep.
I think he's another guy that probably doesn't get the credit he deserves at times. I think he doesn't do anything flashy, but he was tough. It came down to a last possession. You knew you wanted Matty Knight, Damian Martin on board. Yep. Matty was going to defend and get the rebounds, and Damo was just going to cause havoc. So
he even hit a 3 for a game winner. I think it was against Townsville one night.
I do remember that. Yes, he could step up, and he's known more for his kind of mid-range jumper, but he was tough on the block, and someone that you had full confidence in, and someone you wanted on your team when you took the court.
What about Shawn Redhage? Does he make your bench?
Look, I don't throw myself in, but a guy who I think should be in there is Jesse Wagstaff.
Okay, he was next on the list.
Yeah, so we'll skip to that one. I think Jesse, about to play his 400th game with the club, and I don't think anyone will argue he's probably sacrificed maybe the most out of a lot of these guys. He probably could have been playing 30, 35 minutes a game. A lot of different clubs. I know a lot of clubs chased him during his career. So to me, that's just kind of probably epitome of being a Wildcat player and success that he has. And you know what? I really hope he wins the championship this year so he can be the only player with 7 championships. To me, that would just kind of epitomize himself in his career. You know, he was never the leading scorer, but he did so many things to help a team win. And you can kind of see Scott Morrison really enjoying having Jesse out there on the court. He's playing a lot of minutes and playing well this year and doing those little things. And, you know, you've heard Scott Morrison just talk about it. You know, he doesn't do anything flashy, but when he's on the court, we're playing well. So he's giving them lots of minutes. Okay,
that means you've only got 2 slots left, Shawn. Let's get to another former championship winner, grand final MVP, Kevin Lish.
This is where it gets really tough. My decision here, I think Damo's definitely in. I don't think you can not have Damian Martin in, and we can have a chat about that in a sec. Sure. But then it comes down to Kevin Lish or Mike Ellis. And look, I love Kevin Lish. You know, he's one of my favorite players. Actually, helped try and recruit him when I used to go play over in Puerto Rico, and we brought him over there. We won a championship, and you know, he was probably one of the the best players and best teammates that we played with. But I think you have to take in, like, when you're doing a 40th anniversary team, you have to take in the longevity thing. And I think, you know, how many seasons did Kevin end up playing? 4 or 5?
Yeah, I think it was 4.
I think it was 4. And so, to me, I'm going to lean towards Mike Ellis. And I know Kevin Lish won an MVP. But I just think when you got an anniversary team, and just the fact that, you know, I mean, Mike was the first captain of the Wildcats, and, you know, great player, but I think just the longevity and still impactful around the club. I'm going to go with Mike Ellis into the team over Kevin Lish.
No, it's really tough to argue, but it's when we're talking 40 years, we're probably talking, I don't know how many players. Do you know how many players have played for the club? It must be 200 probably, at least, is it? I mean, it's really tough to narrow it down to the best 10, especially when you've won 10 championships and you've been to 35 straight finals. And to me, obviously, Kevin Lish is really unlucky to miss out. James Harvey's unlucky to miss out. For both myself and Damo, Jesse was unlucky to miss out. You're unlucky to miss out on your own team. But, I mean, there's been a lot of great players that miss out. But when you're talking about the best 10 in 40 years, you've got to make some tough calls, I guess.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I think if you did today's NBL where they have 11, you probably throw in Kevin Lish.
Oh, you could stretch it to 12.
Yeah, you could even go 12, but I guess you got to draw the line somewhere. Yeah, it's a tough one, and then I guess the other thing is, are you doing positions? Because I'm kind of running positions here as well. You know, you're not gonna throw in all 5 men or all point guards. That's not how basketball works. You got to kind of do at every position, I think.
I agree. Okay, I like your team. The only difference that I think you've got from my team was that I had you and you had Jesse. So I think that's the only difference. And then the only difference I had with Damo was that he didn't have himself and I had him in there. So I think we're pretty much in agreement across the board. When this team's officially announced, whenever the club is set to do it, do you think they'll agree with us, or do you expect some surprises?
Oh, look, I think they put together a pretty good panel. Yep. And from media to ex-owners and everyone involved. So I think it'll be pretty close. I think there maybe there'll be like one surprise. But you know, it's always interesting. It's always you know, and it'll be interesting to hear the conversations that went on through that. But you know, it's a tough one at a club like the Wildcats with such history.
Absolutely. Well, next time we talk, Shawn, we'll talk more about the current NBL, but we've taken up a lot of your time already. It's been fun to go through your team and get your thoughts on this 40-year anniversary team. Before I let you go, I believe you've taken your family off on a bit of a vacation before they head back to school. Are you enjoying the surrounds?
Yes, you know, we took after 2 weeks of basketball camps, come out to Crown for a couple of days. We did it last year, and just a time to relax before the chaos of school starts back up. So, you know, we can't travel anywhere outside of WA, so not a bad spot to be here. Hopefully, can watch the skywork on Australia Day, and look forward to starting the school term back up in about a week's time. So it's interesting times, I think, around Australia at the moment. But I guess you just got to enjoy it day by day as you can, and hopefully at some stage we'll get to see some NBL basketball live. But it looks at this stage it's not going to be anytime soon. But we'll wait and kind of hear the final word after the discussions that the Wildcats and WA government have had.
Every chance we don't see you back on our TVs this season, isn't there?
Very, very decent chance of that as well.
I think you were scheduled to be on deck for Jesse's 400th game, which would have been nice, but unfortunately that's now going to be on the road.
Yes. He's it's only 4 games away, so it was going to be. I think was it going to be back here on the?
I think it was meant to be the second home game. So Damo talked about how he was doing the first home game back. You were set to do the second, so you were supposed to be on deck for that milestone.
Yeah, that would have been an awesome thing to see and be a part of. Only second player ever to reach 400 games for the Wildcats. So a testament to him, and you hope for his sake he'll be able to get to celebrate that. Those are the guys you really feel hard for in this whole thing. The ones that have the families back here in WA, and he's got 3 kids and a wife back here. So it's can imagine the emotions and the sacrifice they're having to go through. So be able to get that win the other night against Illawarra, testament to their resilience. But it's they could be tested a lot more throughout this year.
Absolutely. All right, Shawn, thanks for joining us, and I better let you get back to the pool.
Thanks, Mikey.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Thank you to the scoring machine. I hope you enjoyed some more insights from Shawn Redhage. We've got some big news. Before we get to the big news, Damo, let's run through what we've got to look forward to in round 9 of the NBL. We don't have much time in between. No time in between, actually. We've got a game every single day. But Thursday night, a rematch. The Illawarra Hawks and the Perth Wildcats. What do you think?
Yeah, the Wildcats, I think they found a nice little groove. We mentioned him before, but Fraser is going from good to great, and I think we're going to see his best basketball in the next couple of weeks, and it'll start with the Hawks.
Interesting one on Friday. I imagine both these teams pretty desperate for a win. The Jack Jumpers at home to the 36ers.
The Jack Jumpers, I want to say, have led the first quarter more than any other team. They go into quarter time up pretty much every game. They're amazing at how they begin games with the scout, the preparation. They just can't close it out.
I kind of think they're the best coach team in the league, just about.
Yeah, Scott Roth has been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Jacob Chance, Mark Radford, old coaches of ours. I know all 3 of those coaches. They're all former Wildcats coaches, great people, great coaches. No surprise that Tasmania do lead at times. They just can't get together for that full 40 minutes. Against Adelaide at home, I think Tassie, if they start well again, they might be able to hold on this time. But Sunday Detch back with more minutes under his legs. I expect to see big things for him for the 36ers.
Couple of games on Saturday. Good gracious, let's hope this game goes ahead. The Cairns Taipans at home to the Illawarra Hawks.
Oh, please let me see Taipans out there. I would love to call Nate Jawar on game day and just prank him and say, sorry, mate, it's been cancelled. Then get his live reaction. We'd have to get the beep button ready. But, yeah, I'd love to see.
He was meant to have played his 200th game about six weeks ago.
Is that right? Oh, look, I'd love to see Nate and his boys out there versus the Hawks, but after 30-odd days of not playing, it's going to be a tough one. It'll be 30 by then. I think the Hawks will get it done, especially if the Hawks do drop another one to the Wildcats. Yeah. They will get a rev up from Goorj.
Oh, absolutely. Then second up on Saturday, the Brisbane Bullets and the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix.
Southeast, it's funny, we've spoken about them. We don't give them enough credit, I don't think. They're a great team. They've got good chemistry on the floor. They seem to genuinely enjoy playing for each other. And after every score, 5 people are pointing each other. It's just great camaraderie, great chemistry. I think they're in a nice groove right now. Like every other team, they'll have some ups and downs, but I see them getting a win over Brisbane, who, like you and I keep saying, star-studded, just can't seem to get it right for 40 minutes.
triple header on Sunday. First up, Adelaide at home to Melbourne. Are the 36ers any chance of turning around that result from last week?
I don't see it happening. Like we said, they weren't bad. It's just that Melbourne seem to be at a different level right now. Whether Melbourne can sustain this level, with all the basketball that's coming up, who knows? But if any team's going to do it, it is them, because they do run deep on that bench. And we mentioned Brad Newley earlier. When you've got a dual Olympian coming off the bench that can still give you 10 points in quality minutes, it means you can rest some players with a slight eye towards the next game when they build those double-digit margins, which they seem to be doing more often than not.
Next up, this will be a good one. Sydney Kings and the Perth Wildcats.
Well, it's we're only a quarter of the way through the season, but nearly a third of the way through the season. This is a do or die, I think, for Sydney. If they are going to test themselves against top 4 teams, they've got to break into it, which means they've got to beat some of them. And there's no bigger task right now opposed to Melbourne United than the Wildcats. And they're playing on their home court. Perth would have to be starting to feel that little bit of fatigue of being away for so long. And
especially when there's no end in sight.
That's the thing. Maybe the Kings can take full advantage of that. And like we said, with the type of basketball that DJ Vasiljevic is playing, Martin's obviously a quality import. I think Sydney need this win, but I'll tip my boys.
Then the last one, New Zealand Breakers and the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. The Breakers are listed first, but it's still played in Hobart. So if you want to call that a home game, then go for your life. But this will be the Breakers' first game in a couple of weeks now. How will they go against the Jack Jumpers?
I've got the Breakers, and I think the Breakers are going to go on a winning streak.
They were in good form. Yeah. Let's hope they haven't lost some momentum now.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to continue playing good basketball. We spoke to Rob Beveridge a few weeks ago about their identity, the Breakers' identity, and I thought Bevo, nailed it with let's establish who your superstar is and work backwards from there, because they've got a lot of talent, and I think their front court is doing some good things. They'll build off that, and they're going to go on a 3, 4, 5 game winning streak. And I think they're going to turn some heads. I don't know if they'll be able to break into the top 4, but I've got a feeling New Zealand, of all the teams that are living out of a briefcase, are going to be handling it the best for the next month or so.
Yep, don't disagree. It's time for an announcement on the show, Damo. It's been a lot of fun. We've got to 10 episodes this season, but this might be it for you. Do you want to fill in our listeners on why you might not be able to continue as co-host?
I feel like I'm cheating on our listeners.
And maybe you can tell them also where they might be able to keep listening to you.
Yeah, I am. I've taken on a full-time job, so live on air 3 to 5 p.m. with SEN. So I will be on a rival station, so I better not talk too much about it. But I've said this a few times. I've loved, the interaction we had last year where I got to be a guest here and there, and then put my hand up to be the full-time person, with Shawn obviously being as busy as he is. And then all of a sudden I'm messaging you saying, hey, I'm really sorry, Pikey, but I've accepted a job elsewhere. So I'm excited for a new challenge. I'll be on air with Paul Hazelby, obviously a Fremantle doc is great. It's called The Run Home. I've got to work on my radio voice, The Run Home with Hayes and Marto. So looking forward to that, but unfortunately that does mean I'll be stepping away. Co-hosting this with you, I hope everyone who's out there that loves basketball does enjoy the show, but more importantly then goes and reads the articles you write. I think you've got a great basketball brain. I'm going to miss picking it, miss talking about it each week, but where I can help the show, I'd love to, because Hoops Heaven have been amazing, Everlast have been amazing, Boomerang, thank you for all the support. But if anything, the show's going to get even better because you're getting rid of me and bringing in someone who actually knows what he's talking about.
Well, potentially. Well, I'll get to that shortly, but Damo, I mean, there's no hard feelings, obviously, because I first saw you play before I met you when you came to Perth. You first came to Perth in 2009. It was the same time I started working in the Wildcats, so there was a 3 or 4 year period there. I virtually saw you every single day, so we got to know each other pretty well. But the best part about you is that when you work in this industry, it can become a job that once you're out of it, you quickly lose touch with people. So I kind of took note of when I left the Wildcats, made my announcement I was leaving working there, the people that reached out and stayed in touch with me, and you were one of them. You're one of the most genuine people anyone would ever come across. So we've stayed in touch for all this time, continued to work together, and I'm sure we will still have a lot to do with each other, even if it's just catching up. Damo, and more importantly, the Damo Award will continue.
It will continue, yes.
And we're going to throw you into the rotation of being one of our guests that my new co-host will speak to you on.
Exactly. No, looking forward to still being a part of the show in that capacity.
If you ever catch up on the votes, that is.
Yeah, I mean, you may not want me. I will catch up on the votes. It's funny, I'm watching more NBL than ever before, when the games are actually on, than ever before. So I've got no excuse not to be writing down a 3-2-1 with my votes. So I will get them to you. I'd like to keep you hanging there. But no, excited to be tuning in now as a listener opposed to a host. And are you going to announce the new host?
I will, because he's He's basketball royalty. The Ellis name is incredible in WA basketball. Mike Ellis is part of our anniversary team, and his son Cody will now be my co-host moving forward. And speaking of good people, like, we know he's a great basketball player. He played 150 NBL games, still the captain of the Warwick Senators. He's the star of the Perth Bandits. Thanks to Nick and all of that. So he's always wearing his Perth Bandits singlets with Ellis on the back, and he's got his Perth Bandits cap on. So Cody Ellis will be my co-host moving forward, and can't wait to pick his brain and get his thoughts on everything. And more importantly, maybe not so much a Perth Wildcats bias as we've had in the past.
I deserve that. Yeah, you might.
Well, Shawn was worse, to be honest.
Okay, good. No, it's going to be interesting because obviously he played for Bevo, so you'll be able to pick his brain about Bevo as well. And then growing up, the son of basketball royalty, what was it like? So, no, a lot of good things to learn from him as a person and a player, and I'm sure he'll do a good job.
Yep, can't wait. So next week, when you tune in, you'll hear the voice of Cody Ellis alongside me, so looking forward to that. But, Damo, you won't be lost to us, and anyone tune in, go and listen to 3 to 5 on every weekday starting next week. I think, is it Monday, your first show?
I believe Tuesday. I've got to double check. I really should tune into this a little bit more. But next week I will be on air, having some fun, making plenty of mistakes, I'm sure, but learning as I go.
Now, before I let you go, Damo, and before I let you sign off, how are you going to get through the camping trip this week?
Oh, hitting the road tomorrow. 40 degrees down where we're going. I'm useless with my hands. And yeah, camping with my wife, 2 daughters, my brother-in-law, his 3 kids. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Bonnie's convinced she can swim. She definitely can't. And we're staying, by the ocean. So I know I've got a lot of greys as it is, but wait till you see me next time. I'll be ahead. I'll look like Andrew Gaze. The stress that this is going to cause me just chasing these kids around the beach.
And Brett Maher. Have you seen Brett Maher lately?
Yeah. But no, I can't wait. So 2-day camping trip coming up. Looking forward to it, but I'm useless when it comes to camping. So we'll see how my wife goes.
Well, to be honest, it won't affect us. So if you don't turn up for us again next week, then so be it, Damo.
Send the search party.
Now, it's been a big show. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks to Hoop 7 for making it possible. Thank you for Tab Touch. Stay tuned later in the week for Tab Touch Preview with Matty Knight, where we go through all the action as well. I'll sign off, and thank you to Damian Martin for joining me. Thanks for having the faith in me to join me as long as you have. I'll let you have the final word on your final episode.
Oh, you've thrown me under the bus. Look, I'll just tell our listeners something I say to every kid that I talk to. When it comes to team sport, you should play for the 2 R's. I believe this is a Mick of Vacona thing, and then I heard Matty Nielsen say it. You should play team sport for 2 R's, rings and relationship. Trying to win as many championship rings as possible, but more important than that is the mateship, and that transcends the basketball court to studios like you and I have now developed, and in life. So for all you coaches out there that are listening, remember, if the kids aren't enjoying it and you're not encouraging the mateship and their camaraderie, then don't worry about the championship. You're never gonna win one. So hopefully people enjoy tuning in, love the game, love the teams, and get behind them and support them in the right ways.